Welcome to True Crime and Wine Time. I'm Terry.
And I'm Llama.
Tonight, we are uncorking the truth behind one of the darkest crimes and breaking it down together with you.
One case, one conversation, and one or maybe two glasses of wine to take the edge off. It's time to get comfortable and double check those locks before we get started.
So let's take a sip and dive in.
Hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of True Crime and Wine Time. I'm Llama, and I have my lovely guest co-host with me who's on mute still before she goes to try to say anything. I don't know why she's muted, but she is. There she is.
Hi.
Hi, it's the lovely Amos. Usually she's behind the scenes keeping us in line, but she's come to help me tell this story. So thank you for being here. Cherry True Crime will be back next week, but you get us for another week. How exciting.
Yep. And to bring you the not so great Shawn Grate.
Yeah, he's not great. He's not great at all. Hi, Lady in Gray. Good evening to you. Hope you're doing well. It's been so long since I've seen you, huh? All right, you guys, before we begin though, all right, as you're coming in, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss when we go live or drop an episode. And if you're watching this as the replay crew, hit the hype button because apparently that's a good thing to do for us as well. Buffy explained it twice today, and I don't understand it, but I know it's important, so just do it.
I feel so out of the loop on all things because of being out on vacation.
How
And
dare
just
you?
now trying to you get what you get tonight.
You get what you get tonight. That's pretty much how we do everything around here. You get what you get. I don't know. And if you're listening to this on a pod, please download and leave a rating and review as it helps our little pod get noticed. And you can also become a member of our YouTube channel, which comes with all sorts of exclusive perks, including extra content. You just click the join button and pick which tier works best for you. Ames, did you hear I'm doing a bonus episode of Llama Learns About on Saturday for our members?
I caught that this morning when I was
Feet.
able to listen in on your, that's going to be a treat.
It will be. The lovely Elbow Feet, my partner. We're going to be reading the author, James Joyce's erotic smut letters to his wife, Nora. So you don't want to miss that. So definitely become a member so you can be with us live for that catastrophe on Saturday. So I'm very
that's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. Hello, Spetty. I hope you're doing well today, babe. There's the lovely Buffy Bot resting
Hello.
after our super long Laura Owen stream today. I don't know, Buff. You might have to read more tomorrow. I think I read a lot today, and I'm going to read a lot tonight. So my voice is going to be like, oh, feeling a little rough there. Yes, true. It is a standing kind of disclaimer on our shows that you get what you get. You get what you get with us, and it's not disappointing.
But you know what? We have fun, right?
We do. We have lots of fun. Yeah. I mean, if you're not having fun, then you're doing it wrong. Well, friends, why we're here tonight is because we are on part 3, the final part of our The Captured, the call that brought down Shawn Grate. The finale is tonight. It's been a very interesting story all along. So I am very eager to get into that tonight and finally get rid of this guy who is garbage.
Yeah.
Gosh, he is the worst. And you're having fun. See, Spetty's having fun. Everybody be like Spetty Ross. Oh, I will have that sexy Llama lost voice tomorrow. Excellent for Fukong Friday. All right. Well, what are you drinking tonight, Ames?
I've got Diet Mountain Dew. I'm not very
That's true. She doesn't drink.
I'm not very adventurous with my drinks. It's usually peach tea water or Diet Mountain Dew or coffee.
That's true. Sometimes a Monster, and when she gets
Sometimes a
caffeine,
Monster.
it's my favorite, Amos.
You don't want a Monster, Amy, tonight, because that would be something.
It would probably be whatever was going on with me this morning. Oh my gosh. Well, tonight I'm drinking my usual, what is it? The Yosemite Road Moscato. It's nothing fancy. I'm going to go pick up some fancier wines this weekend. It was very last minute because I wasn't going to drink anything. And then I was like, yeah, I'm going to. So it's, it's classy like me. It is delicious. I mean, listen, it's cheap wine, but it goes down smooth. You don't really get, that cheap wine hangover. So it's not bad. I don't mind it. I drink it a lot. Not a lot. That doesn't sound right, but you know what I mean.
It's funny. Speaking on wine, I was on vacation and we were walking out of a store and there was this guy carrying 2 boxes of wine walking out of the store, and he was by himself and he was very, very happy. He was extremely happy. And my husband goes, "What is he so happy about?" I said, "Well, he's got 2 boxes of wine. Why wouldn't he be happy?"
Why wouldn't you be happy? He was like, "I've got what I need. I'm going to go have a good time."
So,
listening to True Crime and Wine Time. Maybe. Are you out there, sir, from North Carolina? Are you a fan? Well, you know what? We do got a long one tonight. So let's get into the rest of the story for Shawn Grate, shall we? Oh, should we do a little recap of where
that'd
we
probably
left
be a good
off?
idea.
Yeah.
Why do I feel like it's been more than a week? I don't know why it feels like it's been more than a week.
I thought today was Monday. Okay.
I thought today was Sunday. So.
We're a mess, see? So on our last episode, we were in the middle of Shawn being interviewed by Detective Kim Majors, who was doing an excellent job getting him to confess to not only the 2 bodies that were found in the house and Jane Doe, who did survive, but he also dropped some extra details she wasn't expecting, including other women he had killed. So we got to hear what was his excuse why things happened, and it was nauseating. About, how him and Jane Doe were going to get married, and it was so disturbing and gross. He, of course, does what all the other people usually do and try to minimize everything, including when he talked about the murders of Stacy and Liz. He minimized the shit out of those, all right? I think it's safe to say it was probably way worse than what he admitted to, because he does care what people think about him, or at least I feel like he did with Majors. I don't know if maybe it was like this mother complex or something. I don't know. But so we went over all of the interrogation for Jane Doe, Liz, and Stacey Stanley. And tonight we'll be going through the rest of the confessions of the other women, including the trial that happens, victim impact statements, and more, an uncovering of another victim several years later, and justice for some more of the women. It's a kind of a long one, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Their stories are really important to us, and telling, who they are, what the families went through. Ashland, Ohio is a large town, but it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody, so it hit the community pretty hard, not just the families, but the communities as well. So there are some pretty awesome boss lines.
A lot of places in Ohio as I traveled through it.
I mean, even Columbus is just a big city town. Like everybody still knows everybody, it feels like. So his words are trash. That they are. Hello, Pam, and hello, Wicked Banshee. Well, let's continue on with this interrogation, shall we? You start us off, Ems.
I will do that. Let me just get us over here to this so that I can do my other job half-assedly. As much as I possibly can.
You're doing great.
All right. So, as the interrogation transitioned away from the immediate horrors at the Yellow House on Covert Court, Shawn Grate began to map out a trail of bodies that stretched back months and years, leading
Mhm.
investigators toward a name they hadn't even been looking for: Candace Cunningham.
Now, Candace was 29 years old, born in Canton, Ohio, to a mother who remembered her as a girl who was always giggling, always happy. She had siblings, Chucky and Ashley, and once held dreams of becoming a massage therapist. But like so many of Grate's victims, Candace's life had been a series of peaks and valleys because he sucks and goes
Yes.
after very vulnerable women. I
She
hate
was a
him.
mother. She had a son, Devlin, and a daughter, Christina. But life had become a struggle, and after losing custody of her children to Children's Services, Candace decided to move to Mansfield, Ohio, for a fresh start.
Now, in Mansfield, hey, weren't you just there the other day?
Uh,
Or
I was
no?
I was Marysville.
Marysville. That's right. That's where you were. Never mind. So
Mhm.
I get them confused, even though they're not very close to one another. They're like in opposite ways north of me.
Yeah.
Well, in Mansfield, she moved through a series of roommates. She was a woman living in the margins, just trying to find her footing in the world. But in April 2016, the trail went cold. To the outside world, it looked like she had just simply drifted away. Now, she had been picked up for having a marijuana pipe in her purse, and her family believed she had moved to North Carolina. And they weren't surprised that they couldn't really reach her, as she often didn't have a working cell phone.
Because she was transient, her family thought she had moved. Candace Cunningham was never reported missing. She had disappeared into thin air, and for months, no one was looking for her until Shawn Grate
Mm.
sat in a room with Detective Major and uttered her name. You said there's someone in Mansfield. What happened to her, Shawn?
Oh, it's so sad. I mean, I don't blame them for not filing a missing persons report, but at
Mm-hmm.
the same time, like, man. Ugh.
Right?
Now, Great began to detail the end of a relationship that had once looked like a fresh start for both of them. For a brief window in the spring and early summer of 2016, Shawn Grate and Candace Cunningham appeared to be a couple building a life. They lived together in a house on Park Avenue East. Candace was active on Facebook, posting about their relationship just 1 month before she vanished, digitally documenting a romance that was rapidly spiraling into a nightmare.
And according to Grate, um, the snap happened in the early hours of June 12th, 2016. Let's get us. And that's not showing.
3 o'clock in the morning, and I got hit in the face with a bag of tobacco. Understand?
He got hit in the face with a bag of tobacco
Mm-hmm.
and he just snapped. Oh, poor little Shawn.
Yeah,
Grow
he
up.
is. He is douchebag.
Ugh.
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 It is a hauntingly petty catalyst for murder. In Grate's narrative, the minor physical slight was enough to trigger his hunger.
After he killed her inside the home, his instinct wasn't just to hide the body, but to erase the very memory of the space where they had lived. What did he do? He set the house on fire, wrapped Candace's body in a blanket, and carried her to a ravine nearby. Very similar to what he told Jane Doe he was going to do, if you
Mhm,
remember when we talked back in episode 1. He told
mhm.
her he was going to set the house on fire.
Yeah. Months later, Grate sat in the back of a police cruiser, leading investigators to the charred remains of 1027 Park Avenue East. As they stood in the Madison Township weeds, he pointed, sorry, I'm having eye trouble issues, toward the ravine, about 60 feet from where the front door used to be, where they found what was left of Candace Cunningham.
Yeah, sorry. Amos got some sunburns on her trip that have also affected, as Buffy would say, her eyeballs.
Yes.
So be nice and bear with her. She's doing her best, but sun affects everything. So I'm just glad you're feeling and looking better. Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
Our delicate
I
northern
could not have worn
skin.
this 2 days ago.
I believe it. Now, perhaps the most jarring detail of the recovery was Grate's reaction. Standing before the blackened foundation of the house he had torched, the man who had remained cold and clinical about strangling numerous women suddenly became emotional. Whatever. He wasn't crying for Candace, though. It seemed more like he was grieving the loss of a house, the side of fantasy that he himself had set ablaze.
So 2 days after his initial arrest, Detective Major sat across from him again and the onion began to shed its oldest, most weathered layer. When Major asked if there was anything else Grate had wanted to tell her, he didn't hesitate.
He told Detective Major about a woman in Marion County, Ohio, from 10 years earlier. A woman whose name he couldn't quite remember. He threw out names like Dana, Diane, or Dina, but he was certain about one thing, and that was that they had already found her.
I can't place the time. It was like 2005. Cold case. They've
already found her.
The motive for this murder was as petty as the bag of tobacco or a perceived lie. Grate claimed the woman had been selling magazines and supposedly ripped off his mother by never delivering the order. One day, he spotted her in town. He lured her with a lie, telling her he had money for her at his house. And once they were isolated, he confronted her.
I took her with me to my grandparents' house where I was living. I was remodeling my grandparents' house. Started arguing with her, like, dude, Colin, you're just gonna take my money and I felt her bullshit, and I was just raged. Okay. So that's when I fronted her. So you're gonna rip me off like you did my mama?
Ugh.
His mama.
But before she could answer, he choked her into unconsciousness. He dragged her to a basement, a precursor to the horrors of the Yellow House, and stabbed her in the neck to ensure she was dead.
He wrapped her in sheets and dumped her near a railroad tracks northeast of Marion. But killing her wasn't enough. He went home, burned the sheets, and then returned to her body. In a dark mirror of what he would later do in Mansfield to Candace, he set her remains on fire, attempting to burn away any trace of who she was.
This man, all these slights. Oh, at least she hit me in the face with a bag of tobacco. Oh, I felt slighted about money. Like, that's why I know that we go over how many victims? 5 plus Jane survivor. I feel like there still has to be more. I mean, we know how he treated his previous girlfriends. We did talk about that in the last episode. But like, that sets you off and you're just like, you know what? I'm going to kill you. Like, are you serious?
Yeah. If his trigger is that easy.
Yeah. Exactly. He didn't know this woman.
Yeah.
But he was like, you know what? I am entitled to take your life over some fucking magazines. Like, are you serious?
Yes, Lady Grate.
He killed her. Yes, Lady Gray says he killed her in his grandparents' house. What a fuck face. Yes,
Yep.
he is. There's your llamaism for tonight. What a fuck face. Now, when a man looking for cans found her remains a year later, there was sadly nothing left to identify her. No clothes, no jewelry, no ID, just scattered remains in a field. And for 9 years, she was known only as Marion County Jane Doe. Just another cold case gathering dust on a shelf.
Unfortunately, there's way too many of them out there.
That's true.
The woman Grate called Dana remained a ghost, leading investigators to pull out every technological tool in their arsenal. After Grate's confession, a sketch artist from Delaware County Sheriff's Office sat with Grate, trying to pull a face out of his decade-old memories. Simultaneously, a forensic artist from the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation began a 3D facial reconstruction, building a face out of clay over a model of the skull.
Wow, that's really impressive. By the way, podcast listeners, we're looking at pictures of the 3D model of her head, and that's really good. I don't know how much it looks like her. That's who was in the last one, right?
That's her.
Okay. All right. That's fairly good, I think. Wow.
Absolutely. It's the only picture of her out there, so.
Yeah. Wow. Well, while the high-tech reconstruction was underway, one of the most significant leads didn't come from a lab. It came from a conversation between Detective Major and her oldest son. They were at a local football game where her husband was coaching, and amidst the cheers and the crisp Ohio fall air, she found herself talking to her son about the case that had basically consumed her life at this point. She mentioned the struggle to identify the victim from a decade ago.
But her son remembered something. He brought up a body found years earlier in Ashland County by a Columbia Gas employee. At the time, the death hadn't been treated as homicide because of the victim's lifestyle. It was written off as a suspected drug overdose. Major's son pointed out that the area where the body had been discovered was the exact same area where Shawn Grate had built one of his temporary forts.
And Detective Major didn't wait. The very next morning, she went back to the jail and sat across from the man with the piercing blue eyes and waited. She told Grate that she had questions about this unknown victim, the one near the fort.
And unexpectedly, the onion shedded another disturbing layer. Grate didn't say Dana this time. He looked at Major and gave her a name that finally matched a real life, a real family, another body, and a real police report. Rebecca Lisi. I think that's how you say it.
With those two words, a once closed overdose case was reopened as a murder investigation. Rebecca Lisi, once dismissed by the system, was no longer a statistic. She was Shawn Grate's fourth confirmed victim. Now, Lady in Gray says, I'm getting sick of this lifestyle excuse. Me too, girl. They have been using it for decades in all of our stories. And yes, does it sadly a lot of the lifestyle end in overs? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be like, yep, that's enough and close that, especially when we're about to learn some
Should
more.
be your go-to, you know?
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, and also if somebody does, struggle with drug addiction, how easy it would to murder them and make it look like an overdose,
Right.
Like, I think, honestly, I think that happens a lot more
Yeah.
than we think, to be quite honest with you. But
Now, the story of Rebecca Lisi is the shining example of how a predator like Shawn Grate thrives in the gaps of the broken system. Rebecca wasn't just a case file, she was a woman whose life was a tug of war between a determined spirit and a devastating addiction.
Now, born on March 24th, 1983, Rebecca was a daddy's girl with a very bold and spunky personality. Her father remembered her as a, quote, spunky little brat who fought to get her way. I mean, who isn't sometimes? But she was a loyal friend and a mother who, at just 16, chose to leave high school to raise her first son with the support of her parents.
But the wrong path started early for her. A boyfriend in high school introduced her to the world of hard drugs, and what began as a recreational use spiraled into a lifelong battle with addiction.
You know, and I know some people's opinions can be like, oh, well, of course this is what's going to happen. But let's not forget Stacey Stanley, who had overcome her addiction.
Yep.
You know, like there can be a happy ending for these people. And Shawn took that possibility away. He stole
Yeah.
that possible future for her. And he stole all of Stacey's hard work for nothing, you know? So just remember, there can sometimes be happy endings to people that are, you know, suffering from addiction, but they also, you know, their lives shouldn't be taken away without getting that, you know, that future that everybody deserves. Now, the year 2006 was the breaking point. When Rebecca's mother passed away, the grief was too heavy for her to carry sober. She fell deeper into her addiction, leading to long stretches of silence where her family wouldn't hear from her for months. She did have 2 more children, but as the drugs took hold, her family had to step in to provide the stability she could no longer give. And Rebecca became a ghost in her town, sleeping in tents or on the streets.
Rebecca was last seen on January 22nd of 2015. When she was reported missing in February, the Mansfield police focused their search on abandoned houses on 3rd and 4th Streets, where she was known to frequent. They searched over 60 vacant buildings, but they were looking in the wrong city. On March 16th, 2015, the search ended in the worst possible way. A body was found in the woods near Ashland.
Now, the initial autopsy seemed definitive, right? The medical examiner did find a lethal cocktail in Rebecca's system: morphine, cocaine, and buprenorphine that I can't pronounce right, but we all know what that probably is. With no skull fractures, no stab wounds, and no obvious signs of sexual assault. The conclusion to how she died seemed fairly simple. And I know you're all just like, Llama, didn't you just say? Well, I did say maybe we shouldn't assume that, but we're not done with this part of the story yet. Now, the coroner noted that the neck showed hemorrhaging, but at the time, it was interpreted in a way that ruled out manual strangulation. So there's the one little clue where it's like, that's kind of weird, but okay, she did have a lethal combo in her. So, okay.
Because of her history, the system saw what it expected to see. Her death certificate was marked undetermined, and eventually the supplemental report finalized it as an accidental overdose.
Now, despite the medical ruling, investigators on the ground knew that the math didn't add up, because Rebecca was found propped against a tree in a wooded area, yet she was not wearing shoes. Most tellingly, her socks were perfectly clean. Now, it was a pretty glaring red flag, because how in the hell can your socks be clean when you're in the woods? Like, I don't know how that would even be possible. The clean cotton was silent
Actually, her shoes weren't
testimony.
right there.
Yeah, and her shoes weren't there. Yeah, like, oh, okay. The clean cotton was silent testimony that she had been carried away. But without a suspect or a confession, the case stalled. Now, I can say this. I can understand why they wouldn't initially think murder by a serial killer, right? Because
Well,
it is before the time where Ohio has the Good Samaritan law now, right? To where if you're partaking in drugs and somebody starts to OD, you can call for help and you are not going to get in legal trouble for using illegal drugs. It's probably a system that saved, quite frankly, a lot of lives. Especially, listen, in Ohio, these areas ravaged by the opioid crisis. I mean, all of these areas in Ohio, nobody really stands a chance in a lot of these places, especially in this time frame. But the fact that she was carried there had to be more to it, right? So, like, maybe somebody didn't murder her, but it's still like abuse of a corpse, you know? It's still problematic, but
right.
all right.
Her family was left with the crushing news of her death, but without the justice of a homicide investigation. Little did they know their spunky Rebecca hadn't succumbed to her addiction alone. She had crossed paths with a man who frequented the same woods, a man who had built a fort nearby, and was waiting for the right moment to admit what he had done.
Oh, hi, Bells. Hi, babe. I haven't seen you in a few days. Belle says strange buprenorphine, I can't say, is Suboxone, which is used to get off of opioid, stops cravings. Oh, is that what that is? Okay, that's not what I thought that was. I really didn't know what it was in the first place, but I thought it was like, like some sort of like anxiety thing or whatever. But well, I mean, Suboxone is used to help people get off of that. So it makes excuse me. It makes sense. Um, what's that?
I was agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
Shocking.
Shocking. No, stop. Now, it wasn't until Shawn Grate sat in the interrogation room with Detective Major that the overdose narrative finally crumbled. As Grate sat in the interrogation room, he provided the harrowing step-by-step account of a struggle that the medical examiner had missed, a struggle that turned a petty theft into a brutal murder. Oh, what? Shawn being petty over nothing? Go fucking figure.
Right.
They always talk about women being so emotional. Look at him losing his shit about a bag of tobacco and some magazines.
He is petty.
He's so petty.
According to Grate, he and Rebecca were more than strangers. They were part of the same transient world in Mansfield. They worked as sex workers, shared the same addictions, and occasionally shared a bed. On that night in early 2015, Grate invited her back to a vacant building where he was squatting at, 32 North Walnut Street.
They played a game of pool, but the piece ended when Grate went to the bathroom. He told Major he heard the jingle of a bell attached to his money clip, and that when he checked, he claimed $4 was missing.
Jesus.
Ridiculous. Quote, I confronted her. She tried to leave. I grabbed her, and then the fight started. $4 fucking dollars.
Right?
So
Petty. Again, I mean, $4 is $4, but it's certainly not something to lose your shit over.
And take somebody's life.
And take someone's life, right?
It's
what
crazy.
followed was not a snapped, but a prolonged, agonizing assault. Grate admitted to strangling Rebecca multiple times. At one point, she regained consciousness, fighting for her life, and Grate responded by kneeing her in the face. I just got so tired. I got so tired of fighting with her that I just decided to strangle her to death.
Yeah. How awful.
Douchebag.
To do that to her numerous times.
Right?
Is very cruel. Very cruel. Oh, no, her death is very suspicious, Bells, because Grate just admitted to murdering her. It was not, in fact, due to overdose.
Mhm.
Now, Grate provided the missing link from her autopsy: cervical compression, aka strangulation. This wasn't noticed during the initial autopsy because the advanced decomposition of Rebecca's body had masked the subtle internal injuries of strangulation during the first exam. But once Grate described how he had clinched on, the medical evidence was reevaluated, and it was very obvious.
The Ohio Department of Health eventually issued a final corrected autopsy. The cause of death was no longer tragic accident of addiction. Rebecca Lisi didn't just lose her battle with drugs. She was silenced by a predator who used her vulnerability as a shroud, knowing that the world would likely look at her clean socks and undetermined cause of death and simply look away.
He wasn't wrong until, he
He
told
wasn't
them.
wrong. Absolutely. They
No.
had filed that away.
Yeah, he is a sadist. He's such a piece of shit. I hate this guy.
Mhm.
Now, in his twisted mind, the murder was a way to end his exhaustion. Oh, no, he's so tired. God. Once she was gone, he stuffed her body into a hard plastic golf bag, a detail that would later provide the forensic smoking gun. He left her in the basement for a day and a half while he figured out his next move.
Grate eventually borrowed a car and drove her to the woods in Ashland County. This explained the mystery of the clean socks that had haunted investigators. The forensic evidence was undeniable. Investigators located the bag, and the DNA profile was a perfect match for the story. Rebecca's DNA was on the inside, and Shawn Grate's was on the outside.
Now, I kind of find, Amy, I don't know if you know, because I know you know a lot about the story. You watched the trial, you read the book.
Mhm.
Where did they find this golf bag? Because so many years has passed. Where did they find it? Was it still in this abandoned house, or do you remember?
I think that it was at the site,
Oh, it was at where the body was.
because
Okay.
it was an empty field. I mean, it wasn't.
Okay. That makes sense.
But they found a lot of evidence in other places he had been had tents.
Okay.
So, like, he would camp out somewhere, and he would have things that he stole from a previous area in
I
the
see.
new location or whatnot. I
Mhm.
don't know specifically, and so I will just put the caveat out there that I don't know that for a fact that that's where they found it, but my guess it's something along those lines.
That's
'Cause
reasonable.
I'll be honest, when they started talking about all of the evidence and where they found things, it was a little confusing, and I was really sick to my stomach over this douchebag. So
That's fair. Fair enough. A for effort. Hello, Stringer Bell. Welcome in. Good evening. I hope you're doing well, babe. Thanks for being here. Now, perhaps the most chilling part of this confession was Grate's focus on the memorial. Her family, trying to honor her memory, had placed a cross at the site where she was found. Quote, "They put the memorial in the wrong place. I dumped her behind that tree, and the cross is in the front of it. Ew.
right?
Like, fuck you, Shawn. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not the right place. Shut up."
Even in his confession, Grate was correcting the record to maintain control over the narrative of her death. With these details, the Ashland County prosecutors had everything they needed. And with the amended death certificate, Shawn Grate was officially charged with the murder of the woman he had killed over $4.
So these last three women, let's break it down. Bag of tobacco hit him in the face, dead.
Mhm. Who he claimed he loved her.
Yeah, of course he did.
That
And
he
then
asked
somebody
her to marry.
going selling magazines that he claims are ripped off his grandma for how much? Probably nothing. And who says that's even what happened? That's just
It
what
was his
he
mom,
says.
but
Well,
yes,
yeah,
I
but that's
believe
what he says. That doesn't mean
Mhm.
that was the case. And
Mhm.
then $4?
$4.
Like, are you serious? 3 women lost their lives over that petty bullshit. Ridiculous. Lurking while you dye your hair. Oh, I love that for you. Something fun, I hope. Stringer bell. Now, critics and observers would later compare the relationship between Kim Major and Shawn Grate to that of Clarice Starling and Hannibal Lecter. I would say yes, but
Yeah.
also Shawn Grate is no Hannibal Lecter. Okay. Not at
No.
all. Not even close. Not even close. He's petty and not smart and doesn't have good taste in anything.
He's certainly not smart.
No, but I will say the dynamic was, it resembled it, but I don't want to hold him to like, that would, no, he would love that comparison probably, and he does not deserve
Probably.
any of that. Well, nobody that would be in that position deserves it, but especially not him.
Right.
Especially not him. Now, the interrogations were like a high stakes game of psychological chess between a hunter and a monster.
Major, ever the Top Gun interviewer, began to dig into the biological sensation of his crimes. She didn't ask what he did, she asked how it felt, asking him if it felt like a release of something when he killed. Did it feel good?
Grate's answers were often a whisper, a dark mumbling about his hunger. He admitted that the violence didn't just happen alongside the sex. For him, the violence started with the sexual encounter, which doesn't make sense for all that bullshit you just told us, Shawn.
Yeah.
Sex wasn't involved in any of those. So,
His story changes so many times.
sure. He just wants everyone to think he's more
Mhm.
than he actually is, which is just a pathetic, sad, petty little man.
Mhm.
With Stacey Stanley, the act of sex was the catalyst that flipped the switch to homicide. Again, this is based on what he said, which I don't fucking believe anything.
Mhm.
But that's all we unfortunately had to go with because he murdered them. So, yet with Elizabeth Griffith, he claimed he didn't touch her sexually, which I do believe is a lie, because he, quote, wasn't attracted to her. He said this so many times that, you know, when Thou doth protest too
Protest
much.
too much? Yes. I was
Really?
just thinking that same thing.
Really? Mm-hmm. Now, to Grate, even in death, his victims were subject to his personal whims of attraction. God,
One of the
it's
most
a lot of us
haunting-
just going, Gah! All night.
I know.
Scoff.
You can't just so many times. One of the most haunting series of questions centered on the house itself. Major needed to know why he stayed. Why did he eat, sleep, and play house with Jane Doe, with 2 women who were decomposing feet away?
Grate admitted that his plan to torch the house was about erasing the evidence. He wanted to burn the house to the ground to incinerate Liz in the closet and Stacy in the basement. But the only thing that stopped him was a lack of accelerant, apparently, which also doesn't make sense. You love stealing shit, Shawn. Get out of here.
Right? Sorry about my dog barking. Major then asked about the sensory experience of Jane Doe's captivity. Did she smell them? Grate confirmed she had noticed that the scent of the decay, and she had told Major about a terrifying thud she heard coming from the second floor. I don't know. Sometimes I hear thuds too. That's quote.
It
what he said.
was a rather chilling dismissal. While Jane Doe was hearing the sounds of a house haunted by its own residents, Grate was simply living in it, coexisting with the bodies as if they were pieces of furniture. It was weird.
And as the 33 hours of interrogation over 8 days wound down, Major reached for the one thing Grate had been faking remorse. She asked if he felt bad for the lives he had stolen. Quote, I feel like, what have I done? Unquote.
Now, it wasn't the cry of a man who felt the weight of his victim lives. Of course he didn't. Instead, it was the cry of a man who realized his fantasy world had finally collapsed. The "what have I done" wasn't about the women in the closet or the basement. It was about the fact that he was finally caught.
Yes. Detective Major then shifted from the women Grate had killed to the women who had, by some stroke of luck or intuition, escaped him. She brought up several women who had been seen at or near the house. One of the women, named Tracy, who had actually stepped inside the house with two other people. Grate admitted that she had come inside, but that he didn't do anything to her because he just didn't want to.
Despite the other people being there, which is a bad idea, but sure. He didn't want to. Okay.
Yeah. It's another example of Grate's earlier self-description as an opportunist. For some reason, the hunger didn't trigger with Tracy.
Then there was a 17-year-old girl he had approached, offering to help her with her laundry. It was the same helpful, friendly persona he used at the BP station with Stacey Stanley. But this time, for reasons only Grate knew, he let the opportunity pass. When asked if there were any others he had lured into that apartment, Grate finally said no. The list of the dead was complete, and the list of the lucky was very short.
As the weight of his confession settled...
Did you find a stringer? I know, sorry. There's 2 views on YouTube. There's a vertical in the regular. If we're tiny little people like that, then you're on the other one.
Grate turned his thoughts... I'm sorry, I'll start over. As the weight of his confession settled, Grate turned his thoughts to the one person who carried his name, his son. In a rare moment of apparent emotion, Grate broke down, sobbing as he spoke about his legacy. Quote, I'm going to write him a letter. I want to let him know that it's not in his genes. This isn't who he is, unquote. Please don't write your son. You're muted, my dear.
Thanks. Thanks for having my back. It was a moment of profound irony. Grate, a man who had turned a home into a graveyard, was desperate to convince his son that the darkness stopped with his father. He wanted to believe he was an anomaly, a mistake of nature, rather than a man who had made a series of calculated, monstrous choices. And choices.
Yes.
You know, choices. But no, there's just something wrong with me. I don't know. Blah, blah. And there is something wrong with you.
There is something wrong
I'll
with
give
you,
you that. But you're not a special little dewdrop. Great. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And like, and now you give a shit how it affects your kids. And now you fucking care.
Right.
Get out of here.
He didn't care about anybody but himself.
Exactly.
In the final minutes, Grate's mind returned to the religious themes he had used to justify his violence to Jane Doe. He spoke about wanting forgiveness from the families of Liz, Stacy, Rebecca, Dana, even though he couldn't even remember her name, and Candace. But his focus quickly shifted back to his own soul. Quote, I need time for myself to see if Jesus will forgive me. Jesus forgives all sins if you repent. That's what Jane Doe taught me. Unquote.
That's what Jane Doe taught me. Shut up. Keep her name out of your mouth, Shawn.
Right.
Keep her name out of her mouth. Oh, thank you, Stringer Bell. Thank you for the
Oh,
super chat.
thank you so much.
She says, I love these stories. Cheers, everyone. Oh, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy listening to us. Thank you so much, Stringer. I appreciate you and all your support. Now, he
Yeah.
clung to the teachings of the woman he had kidnapped and tortured, using her faith as a life raft for his own conscience. Disgusting. In a final delusional statement that likely left the detectives cold, Grate said he prayed that, quote, one day he will be free. I mean, it's not up to me what happens, but okay. Whether he meant free from prison, which is never going to happen, or free from his own hunger, Shawn Grate would never see the outside of a cell again. The 33-hour multi-day marathon was over. The names had been given and the bodies had been found.
The interrogation of Shawn Grate remains one of the most significant recordings in criminal history, thanks to the patience and psychological skill of Detective Kim Major. He thought he was repenting, but she knew he was securing his conviction. Ugh, I just got chills reading that.
Right. Now, Shawn Grate was handed 20 charges for the murders of Liz Griffith and Stacey Stanley, as well as the kidnapping and rape of Jane Doe. Yeah, I know you noticed that there's only 3 names there, but don't worry. Well, there will be justice, just not yet. Now, in the state of Ohio, the prosecution didn't just want to prove that Shawn Grate killed Liz Griffith. They wanted to show the calculated sequence of terror that preceded her death and the indignity that followed. So for her, he was charged with 2 counts: aggravated murder, kidnapping, gross abuse of a corpse, burglary for when he went into her house, and tampering with evidence, which I'm glad that they put, they didn't, I guess, have to do all these charges because of what he was facing. But like, I feel like with the amount they gave him for each person, it was like the best they could do for justice for
Well, I
Liz
mean,
and
his
Stacey.
acts, all of the little things mattered in this, and
Exactly.
they needed to be documented, and he needed to be charged. And I just think it mattered in the end that all of those things mattered.
Yeah. Because sometimes they're like, well, we don't need to charge for, because we have all these big ones. But I do feel like they made sure that each of these women, he was going to be held accountable for what he did. And I do appreciate that. Unlike when we were in Alaska and all that fuckery went around for 12 years, where they're like, oh, you were assaulted and kidnapped. We're just going to drop that for a plea deal for this other case because we don't give a fuck about you. So it does feel nice to have some sense of justice.
Ohio got this right.
Even if, they're vulnerable victims in their lifestyles or whatever. So I'm glad that happened. Now, as the prosecution turns its attention to the death of Stacey Stanley, the charges shifted from a narrative of invasion to one of predatory optimism and extreme sexual violence. He got charged with aggravated robbery, murder, and unauthorized use of her vehicle, kidnapping, and rape and murder, some more, and felony assault and terrorism, and a forcible sex act, and gross abuse of a corpse. Again, just piling them on, because they didn't have to charge for him using her car. But it was in such a violation that he used her car that they were like, nope, Shawn, fuck you, buddy. We don't care. We're charging you with everything.
I mean, can you imagine all of the charges that Robert Hansen could have been?
Exactly.
Exactly.
My
thank you, Ohio, for following through and counting every little detail on these.
Right. Why don't you do the final charges for Jane?
The final set of charges in the indictment belonged to the women who would ultimately be Shawn Grate's undoing. Prosecution's final counts detailed the brutal reality of her 3 days in a bedroom of the Yellow House. She had count of kidnapping with sexual motivation. Is that the? Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Forcible rape, vaginal, oral,
3 of
and
them.
yeah,
3 counts for
yeah.
each thing
Sorry,
he
3
did.
counts.
Good.
Yep.
Mhm.
Robbery, which is much like what happened with Stacey Stanley. He went to her apartment and took things.
Mhm.
And burglary was what, count 20?
Yeah. Mhm.
So with all 20 counts laid out, the legal trap was set. The all-American boy from Marion, Ohio, was now officially on his way to being one of the most prolific serial killers of the state.
Again, I'm just it's we cover so many stories here, and so many have pissed us off in this season's shows, but I really just wanna say I appreciate the charges they gave them for each victim, and that's not something you see everywhere if you've been listening to
Mhm.
us, and it's just
Mhm.
nice to see it under such horrible circumstances, but again, it's a small community. This affected all of them. I mean, sweet Liz. Ugh, the police were devastated when she was gone, and it's just, I'm so happy to see
Mhm.
that. Now, on to the trial of Shawn Grate, which began in April 2018, was less of a mystery and more of a formal reckoning of sorts. I mean, they basically got this guy dead to rights.
Right?
Now, the media had already branded him the lady killer, which I think is a stupid fucking name, but whatever. And it was a bit of a double-edged title that referenced both his lethal history and the charming blue-eyed persona he had used to lure his victims. And the reason I say lady killer is, and why I think it's stupid, is because he purposely went after vulnerable women. You know what I mean? It's not just like,
Mhm.
oh, no, he's a fucking scumbag living in a fort in the woods. And I feel like he would enjoy that name, Lady Killer. And I don't like that. So
Yeah.
that's why I have
Yeah,
a
I don't
problem
either.
with it. I'm like, ooh, why do we give him that one? Why not petty little fort baby? Fits. Just saying.
Yeah, I agree with you. Of course I do, because this guy is he should have been the douchebag killer of Ohio. That's what he should have been dubbed. But
Oh, thank you, Stringer Bell. Stringer Bell says, I wanted to clarify. I love the awareness you give these victims. My chat earlier may not have been. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's their stories, you know?
yeah.
And I like to make sure that we tell their full stories, instead of sometimes we can't because there's simply not enough information out there. But when we
Mhm.
can, I know it's really important to all of us here on True
So
Crime and Wine Time. So
the fuckface killer of Ohio. Yes,
the
that is
fuckface killer of Ohio.
that
Yes.
works. That
Yes.
works.
I'm going to write them and be like, excuse me, inmate fuckface, hashtag 012, whatever numbers are. That's what
Mhm.
I'm writing.
Inside the Ashland County Court of Common Pleas, the atmosphere was thick with the grief of the families of Stacey Stanley and Liz Griffith, who filled the gallery day after day. Presiding over the case was Judge Ron.
I think it's forceful.
Um,
Forceful.
no disrespect, Judge. I would
We'll
not be
call
able.
him
I'm not.
Judge F, but I think it's forceful.
Judge Ron F.
Okay.
We'll go with that. Facing a man who already confessed to unthinkable on tape, yet officially entered a plea of not guilty. What? But I just he
Well, it's
admitted
a
it,
death
but he's not
penalty
guilty.
case.
Like what?
I mean, it's a death
Yeah,
penalty case, so he'd be stupid to
I
plead
guess.
guilty,
But he
Well, that's
wanted
not
it so
true.
bad.
You can plead guilty because the sentencing part, you can still not plead and the jury has to decide. But just real back to the lady killer thing and why it pisses me off is because the majority of these women weren't in a fucking relationship with them.
No.
You
None
know,
of them were.
Jane Doe
Well,
wasn't, Liz wasn't,
Candace
Stacy
was the only one.
wasn't, Candace was, Candace was the only one. Well, Rebecca, was she? No.
I
They did sleep together and stuff, but
I
I
think
wouldn't
that
call it a relationship.
I wouldn't have called it a relationship, but
And then Dana was selling magazines. So 4 out of the 6 had
yeah.
nothing to do with this fucking guy. And
Mhm.
so I think that that's another reason why the name is bad.
Yes, agreed.
Because they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Or talked to the wrong guy, but not in that way that he wanted. But anyway, I can rant about it for too long. I'm in a ranting mood today.
It's fair, though. I
Mhm.
mean,
Now, lead prosecutor Christopher R. Tunnell didn't mince words. Along with his team, including Michael McNamara and Mark Weaver, he laid out a case that was essentially a march towards the inevitable. This defendant confessed to every element of every crime he is charged with. This is not a whodunit case. This is a he did it kind of case. He done did it.
and the defense, led by Rolfe and Robert Whitney, was in an impossible position. They made the rare strategic move of waiving their opening statements entirely. There was no alibi to present, no alternate suspect to point to, only the recording of Grate's own voice.
Now, while much of the testimony was regarding the murders, the court also heard hours of testimony regarding Grate's life as a ghost. Witness after witness described a man who broke into campers and stole from bait shops and flea markets. You know, it just like Robert Hansen and the FBI profile that said, hey, this person's going to be a kleptomaniac. Well, look at this. Here we go. Another example of it. And it painted a picture of a man who treated the world as his personal pantry, taking whatever he wanted, whether it was a cooler or a human life.
And as the evidence piled up, like the DNA in the golf bag, the bodies in the house, the living testimony of Jane Doe, Grate made a desperate play by pleading guilty to 15 of the 20 counts against him. It was a cold and calculated move. By admitting to most of the charges, he hoped to show a shred of cooperation that might sway the jury to spare him from the needle. He wanted to trade a confession for his life. The defense presented no case.
What would they even say?
Right? There were no witnesses to speak for Shawn Grate's character and no evidence to contradict his crimes. But all these people had to sit through this.
Yes. And he doesn't plead until before closing arguments, right?
Day 8.
Yeah. Like his side rests. And then he's like, oh, I'm going to plead to like everything but the murders, basically.
Yep, pretty much.
Like, cool. Great. Glad we had all that camper talk. Now, the tension in the courtroom on May 7th, 2018 was nearly physical as the foreperson for the jury, juror number 34, rose to read the decision. For the families in the gallery, this wasn't just a verdict. It was the final legal confirmation of the nightmare they had lived through since the bodies were discovered in the yellow house on Covert Court.
With the reading of the guilty verdicts, the first phase of the trial was over. Shawn Grate sat at the defense table, the man who had once hid in a that's right.
He hid in a couch. I forgot all about him hiding in a couch twice.
He hid in a couch and sent letters to cats.
I forgot.
Of course, we are going to bring that up again, right?
Right.
He was now officially a serial murderer in the eyes of the state of Ohio. I can't even believe I forgot about the couch.
Me either. The couch and the letters to the cats. That's just crazy. But the work wasn't done. Judge Forceful dismissed the jury with a stern warning to not go home and look at social media, don't watch the news, or talk to anyone about the case. The hardest part of their service was still ahead of them.
The trial now entered the penalty phase. This is where the jury had to look at the mitigating factors and weigh them against the aggravating circumstances of his crimes. In the end, they had heard the tapes. They had seen the photos of the closets in the basement, and the jury returned with their recommendation of death. They decided the only fitting end to the man who had stolen the breath of so many was for the state to eventually take his.
Now, on June 1st, 2018, the gallery in the small Ashland community was a sea of purple, the favorite color of Stacey Stanley. Oh, this part's going to be so hard to get through. Okay. Her friends and family wore shirts emblazoned with #StanleyStrong. A silent, unified front against the man who had tried to erase her. As Shawn Grate was led into the room, he was forced to look into a crowd of people who loved the women he had treated as disposable objects.
Then,
good luck, Amy. Good luck reading it. It's so hard. It's so hard. It's so beautiful and so hard and sad and
no, I listened to these people.
Yeah.
Then the man who spent hours whispering to detectives about his hunger stood up to speak to the gallery. Quote, "I just want to say to the families, it's a good day for you. I ask for your forgiveness, and may justice be served today. I want to thank the victims, Stacy, Elizabeth, and Jane. I wish I could change things for them." End quote. What
fuck
the
you,
fuck?
Shawn Grate. Fuck you.
How dare you even speak their names? Like,
you want to thank them for what? God, he's the fucking worst. It was a surreal moment. Grate, true to his lady killer, but we don't fuck it. We're just going to come fuckface persona, attempted to frame his own sentencing as a gift he was giving to the families. The audacity, because they're only there because of him. He phrased his request for forgiveness as something he wanted for them, as if his apology was a final act of charity to help them heal, rather than a plea for his own soul.
The state of Ohio remained silent. The prosecutors knew that no legal argument could match the weight of what was coming next. They deferred their comments, stepping aside to give the floor to the people whose lives had been shattered. The stage was set for the victim impact statements, the moment where the fuckface would finally be forced to hear the true cost of his hunger.
Now, the air in the room changed as the first family member stepped towards the microphone. Curtis Stanley didn't come to the podium to offer the forgiveness Shawn Grate had asked for. Instead, he stood there to reclaim his mother's dignity. No.
He started out with how he has tried to wait a long... Let me start that over because I want to give this justice. He started out with how he has had to wait a long time to look Shawn in the eye and call him a coward. Curtis had gone to the jail to confront Grate, man to man, but Grate had refused to leave his cell.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
Quote, "It doesn't make you a man to kill these women. Stacy had a family that cared. You live with the punishment. You don't live with the hurt. You killed the wrong women. She meant a lot to a lot of people. You made a judgment about Stacy and you were wrong. You knew they were weak and you took advantage of that. I couldn't even have an open casket because of what you did to her. You took that from me. You made me a stronger man, but it was pathetic the way you did it. She wasn't a piece of trash, end quote.
No, she was not, Curtis. You know who's trash? Shawn Grate is trash. The trash man. No offense to trash men. They're different. But this guy's trash. Now, perhaps the most biting part of Curtis's statement was his view on this sentence. While the state sought death, Curtis saw it as an escape. He wanted Grate to sit in the silence of a cell and live with the punishment because, quote, death is the easy way out, end quote.
Scott and Nick Adams, Stacy's brothers, took their turn at the podium. Scott led with the raw, righteous anger of a brother. He looked directly at Grate, the physical tension so high it seemed for a moment he might bridge the gap between the podium and the defense table. Quote, "You are a monster. Who are you to decide to take their life, her life? Today, someone else finally holds yours in their hands. Real justice would be for you to come with me for about 5 minutes. Burn in hell," end quote.
Bravo. Now, Scott gave voice to the private thoughts of every person in that gallery. He stripped away the lady killer myth and replaced it with the reality that Grate was now the one without power, waiting for his own life to be weighed by the state.
When Nick Adams stepped up, he addressed the psychological torture the trial itself had inflicted. For 8 days, the families had been forced to sit through a re-victimization, listening to the clinical descriptions and looking at the horrific photos of their loved ones.
Quote, "We listened as he described my baby sister's head banging off the stairs as he dragged her down. He threw her in the basement and covered her with trash, thinking that's who she was. I'm here to tell you, my sister was not trash. She was a loving, generous person whose willingness to help others is exactly what you used to kill her. You may have killed my baby sister, but you'll never kill our memories. Justice for me is the death penalty. She deserves justice for the heinous acts you committed," end quote. The Adams brothers made it clear that while Grate had tried to treat Stacy like a discarded object, she was a central pillar in a massive protective family. There were 5 siblings, children, and a grandchild, all of whom were now united in a single, unwavering demand for the ultimate punishment.
Stacy's sister, Gina, born just 11 months apart from her, stood up to dismantle Grate's lies once and for all. During his confession, Grate had tried to justify his violence by labeling Stacy as a whore, attempting to paint her as someone whose life had less value. Quote, "Stacy is not the person you claimed her to be. She was the one who loved to cook, the one who took care of everyone. We spoke several times every single day. Since you murdered her, my life hasn't been the same. Our father rarely leaves the house anymore. You've taken the life out of him too," end quote.
The ripple effects, man. There's always ripple effects. It's awful. She looked directly at the man with the piercing blue eyes and offered him no grace, only a cold promise of what she believed awaited him. "I believe you will burn in hell with your eyes wide open. You don't deserve mercy. A part of me thinks the death penalty is too humane for you. I want you to suffer."
Finally, Stacy's younger brother, Joe, stood up next. Like his brothers before him, he spoke of a barely contained urge to take justice into his own hands. He talked about the most tragic what if of the entire search. The family had been mere blocks away from the yellow house while Stacy was still inside.
We were so close to finding you when we were out looking for her. If we had, justice would have been served right there on the street. You took our dad over the edge with what you did.
Joe ended his statement by stripping Grate of his future, reminding him that the family man persona he had tried to protect in his letters to his own kids was gone forever. Quote, "You're never going to hug your kids again. You're never going to kiss them. That's over for you," end quote.
Now, Stacy's other son, Corey, the one she was originally supposed to have dinner at Applebee's with, took his turn. I'm only 24 years old, and I had to bury my mother. She won't be there to see me get married. She won't be there for any of it.
Corey's statement was brief, but focused on the finality of his loss. He thanked the court for the work they had done to secure justice and finding a grim sense of peace in the fact that Grate would finally suffer for the vacuum he left in their lives.
One by one, they had stood up, sons, brothers, and a sister. They had successfully replaced the image of a body in a basement with the image of a woman who loved her family, cooked for them, and called them every day, and had big, big hair.
The sea of purple shirts in the gallery remained, but the voice of the courtroom shifted from a brother's fury to a mother's faith. As Judy Griffith, Liz's mother, approached the podium, the atmosphere became heavy with the weight of a different kind of grief. Judy Griffith stood before the man who had occupied her daughter's home and had taken her life. For Judy, the crime was more than just a violation of the law. To her, it was an act of pure, unadulterated evil. Quote, "You robbed her. Elizabeth was kind to everyone. You are evil. My faith tells me I should forgive you, but you deserve the death penalty for what you've done. You've turned our entire world upside down," end quote.
She spoke of a spiritual reckoning that no court of law could provide. She told Grate that while he might seek forgiveness, he would never see heaven, that the darkness he had unleashed on her family was exactly what he deserves to have returned to him.
Lloyd Keith Griffith wasn't just standing up there for himself. He was there as a proxy for his younger brother, Liz's father, who was too broken to speak for himself. Quote, "I'm here for my brother. He didn't get enough time with his daughter. Elizabeth was a sweet Christian girl, and you took that kindness and you used it to kill her. I have a lot of dislike in my heart for you. Monster. It's all between you and the good Lord now. Your ass is going to hell," end
I
quote.
see a trend with these, and I don't think they're wrong.
No.
Now, the atmosphere in the courtroom was still as heavy as the final family members addressed Shawn Grate. Ryan Stanley, Stacy's uncle, brought a terrifying new perspective to the timeline of the Yellow House. He described how while Shawn Grate was sitting inside with the bodies of their loved ones, the Stanley family was a physical presence outside his windows. When these shirts say Stanley Strong, you don't know what you got into. We were right on your trail, Shawn. Stacy's picture was on the laundromat door across the street. We were knocking on doors right next to the house you were squatting in. I had 2.5 gallons of chainsaw gas in the back of my truck. We were putting the pressure on you, and you knew it. Wow. Wow.
Ryan also spoke of a spiritual reckoning, telling Grate that he had been misled by his own simple-minded darkness. He made it clear that it wasn't the police alone who found Stacy. It was the relentless, prayer-fueled search of a family that refused to stop until they were at his doorstep.
Now, Liz's cousin, Sabrina Culler, focused her words at Grate's most delusional defense, his claim that he was freeing these women from their struggles. You say you freed her? Are you God? What exactly did you free her from? You can hide behind your rough childhood, but we've all had struggles, and we aren't murderers. Your words are empty. Now, Sabrina suggested a punishment that mirrored the crimes: strangulation, or being left in a dark closet under a pile of clothes, just as he had done to Liz. She dismissed his 10 by 10 cell as a luxury he didn't deserve, calling for a swift public end to the small man who had taken so much.
Closing out the impact statement was Liz's cousin, Kathy Shea. She was the one who vocalized the predatory logic Shawn Grate had used for decades. His habit of targeting Christian women whose faith made them vulnerable to his charming act.
Mm-hmm.
You went after Christian women because you knew their hearts were soft and kind. You didn't save them from anything. The jury gave you death, and you should ask for the needle today so we never have to see your face again. The sooner, the better.
And with that, the circle was complete. Two families, one defined by their Stanley Strong unity and the other by their quiet Christian faith, had both reached the same conclusion. They had seen the other Shawn, the one who lived in couches and forts in the woods, and they were done listening to his excuses. They had reclaimed the names of Stacy Stanley and Elizabeth Griffith from the headlines. And now it was up to Judge Ron Forstful to put the final legal seal on the jury's recommendation.
Prosecutor Christopher Tunnell didn't leave any room for ambiguity. He looked at the bench and stated that Shawn Grate is the very reason the death penalty exists in Ohio. He wasn't just requesting a sentence of death. It was more of a demand for a permanent end to the risk Grate posed to the world.
Now, before delivering the sentence, the judge stripped away every possible mitigating factor. Grate was not under duress. He wasn't coerced or provoked. He was not suffering from a mental disease besides being a petty little bitch asshole or defect that would excuse his actions. And that he, and he alone, was the principal offender, the sole architect of the horror in that yellow house on Covert Court. The judge also noted a haunting silence when not a single member of Shawn Grate's family stood to speak for him. Mm-hmm.
At 1:32 p.m. on June 1st, 2018, the gavel fell. The judge moved past the options for parole and even life without parole. Quote, the court finds that a sentence of death by lethal injection shall be imposed for the aggravated murder of Elizabeth Griffith, and a sentence of death by lethal injection shall be imposed for the aggravated murder of Stacy Stanley. But the judge didn't stop there. To ensure the public was protected and that the seriousness of every single crime was recognized, he ran the sentences consecutively. Mm-hmm. 2 death sentences, followed by a minimum of 90 years to life for the kidnapping, rapes, and robberies.
Even if the death penalty was never carried out, Shawn Grate would never again breathe the air of a free man. He was labeled a Tier 3 sex offender. His fines were waived because he would never have the means to pay them, and his 640 days of credit for time served became a meaningless statistic in the face of a century-long sentence.
Outside the courtroom, the sea of purple moved. Outside of the courtroom, the sea of purple moved. Stacey Stanley's family released purple and yellow balloons into the Ohio sky, a silent, colorful signal that they were finally carrying her memory away from the yellow house and into the light.
But as the balloons drifted away, the shadow of Shawn Grate was still lingered. While the Ashland courtroom provided justice for Jane Doe, Elizabeth, and Stacy, the ghosts of the past were still calling out. There were 3 more victims: Rebecca Lisi, Candace Cunningham, and the woman named Dana from 2006. But their stories didn't end here. Oh, look at that. Oh, I'm not going to cry. That picture of them releasing balloons. See,
No.
Fuck you, Shawn. Just because you think some people don't matter doesn't mean that they don't. Look at everyone who loved Stacy and Liz.
Mm-hmm.
I hate him.
On June 12th, 2018, the community gathered on the covert court to witness the final act of catharsis. Simpson Construction donated their time and machinery to tear down a house where Jane Doe had been held and Liz and Stacy had been found.
For years, this property and others nearby were owned by Pump House Ministries, a group known for taking in the invisible members of society, like those with, criminal histories or no place to go. Grate had used the lack of oversight to turn a home into a tomb. As the walls crumbled, the families of the victims stood by, watching the physical reminder of their nightmare turned into a pile of rubble. To them, they weren't just clearing a lot. They were trying to clear the air of the rot Shawn Grate had left behind. I'm so glad they tore it down.
The video there's no audio. It just makes me sad and relieved. And
I wonder what they did with that area. Did they develop it? Is it a park? It's nothing. Okay, of course it is. Well, maybe someday there can be something nice there to represent how nice Liz and Stacy sounded as people.
Okay.
Lady in Gray, I sincerely hope he never has honey bun money. Me too, Lady in Gray. Maybe we'll just write him letters and be like, here, no honey bun money for you. Okay, bye. And you suck. Fuckface.
He shouldn't have anything. He shouldn't have anything.
No, I don't know how he does. I don't think you can work when you're on death row. Like, I don't think you can get a job if you're on death row at all. So that means he probably has, nothing.
Well, and clearly nobody came to stand up for him. So, Okay. On March 1st, 2019, less than a year after Grate had been sentenced to death, facing the overwhelming evidence he had already confessed to, Grate pled guilty to the murders of Rebecca Lisi and Candace Cunningham, along with accounts of gross abuse of a corpse.
Now, Candace's sister, Ashley, stood before the court, her voice thick with the what-ifs that haunt every survivor. I'm sad, I'm hurt, but mostly I'm angry. I wonder what her last thoughts were. I will never forgive you. You took someone who meant so much to so many people. Her mother, Deanna, couldn't even bring herself to look at him, noting the chilling lack of remorse in the man who sat at the defense table. A coward.
But the courtroom saw a rare and heartbreaking moment during the Lisi's family's turn. Bob Lisi, Rebecca's father, walked out of the courtroom in protest. Despite Grate's own guilty plea, Bob refused to believe Grate was responsible for his daughter's death. Quote, Becky was a thief. She stole from dealers. She told people she feared for her life. I think a dealer killed her, and Shawn just had her bag. He's innocent of this. End quote. Ugh.
I know. When I read that, it really pissed me off. Like, what? But then I thought about it some more. It's not great. All right. It doesn't make her dad look great, but maybe that's easier for him to stomach than what really happened to her. I don't know. I don't know what their history was. Did they kick her out? And I feel like it's deeper than that. And he's just using this as a way to not properly deal in grief.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, Is it easier to think that somebody murdered your daughter in a bad drug situation than it is to know that this man who has admitted to all these awful things? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if nobody wants to say that their child was killed at all, let alone by a fuckface like Shawn Grate, and I don't know.
I mean, I don't like what he said at all. All right, Bob, not great. But again, I don't have a murdered, daughter. So people handle things in different ways. I'm sure maybe he might feel differently about it all now. I mean, I do think the idea that Grate's innocent when people only knew it happened because he admitted to it was pretty crazy. But again, grief is bizarre like that. Grief, guilt, all sorts of things.
I think the thing that gets me the most, though, about that is that he knew where he discarded her body and the fact that the cross wasn't in the right spot. That's pretty telling to me.
Yeah.
Because in an interview with Detective Majors, she says that wasn't something people knew. Like it wasn't out there.
Yeah. It wasn't public
the fact
knowledge.
That he brought that up, knowing that, it just tells me he knew he did it.
And Rebecca is the one that they initially rolled as an overdose. So I can also see how you've already grieved your child in one way, and that was the reality of what you thought had happened, and you told yourself, and maybe you started healing by then, and then this happens, and it's too much. That
you would have to grieve all over again.
To grieve all over again, you'd have to stick with the old story to even, so listen, Bob, I don't think what you said was great, but I'm going to give you some grace, because you've had to grieve your daughter twice. And to do it even one time must be just awful, let alone two times. So
I'm sure they grieve every day. I mean, she had kids that are being raised.
That they raised, and it's complicated.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but it's complicated. It's not really any of my business, I suppose, but still. Now, it was a testament of the chaos Grate sowed. Even in the face of a confession, a grieving father's search for a different why led to a dramatic exit when the court wouldn't read his specific statement, which I want to know what that statement was. Now, usually when a defendant is being sentenced in the victim impact statements, usually you can't say certain things, right? But it kind of seems like they let people say whatever, so I don't know. But this also is a whole different case. It's not the death penalty one we just talked about. So it could be a different judge with different rules. Whatever his statement was, though, if he wrote it down, it still went into the record. They just weren't going to let him read it for reasons unknown.
Remind me to talk later about some statements that were written.
Oh, okay. I'll do my best.
Anyway, if we remember.
Okay.
But before the final sentence was read, the lady killer mask slipped completely, revealing a man who was terrified of the very fate he had inflicted on others. quote, "I really would like to stay alive through all of this. I would have loved to have been able to do a lot, but I know I wouldn't have been able to get away with it."
Why would you say that? What does it even mean? There's a lot of
It's
bad stuff I wanted to do, but I couldn't get away with it. So why would you say that, Shawn? You fuck face.
It was a stunning self-admission. He wasn't sorry for the lives he had ended. He was sorry he got caught, and he was afraid to die.
Yeah. Like, oh, I'd really
But
like
was
to stay alive.
like, I don't know. You can't believe a freaking word that comes out of his mouth, really.
No. Now, Common Pleas Judge Brett Robinson, see, different judge than the death penalty one, didn't offer the mercy Grate begged for. He sentenced him to life without parole for the murder of Rebecca Lisi, plus another 17 years to life for the remaining charges, including the murder of Candace Cunningham. These sentences were piled on top of the death penalty he had already received in Ashland. Shawn Grate was now a man buried under a mountain of time and 2 death warrants. And, some people may be wondering, I don't know if you are, well, why didn't they go after death penalties for Rebecca and Candace? It's a good question, but death penalty cases are very expensive. We're talking $2 to $4 million towards his defense for a death penalty. For 2 more victims. And that's not saying that Candace and Rebecca are not worth the money, because I don't like that argument of, oh, it's just really expensive, because we shouldn't value lives like that in justice. But they've already secured 2 that there's no way those are going to be overturned. So, okay, fine. We'll allow that. But they are very expensive. For the state. I mean, hell, just to do George Wagner III, haven't even done his dad's. His defense was $4 million for his defense for a 3-month death penalty trial that ended up not even being a death penalty case. Don't even get me started. It's a whole different story. If you want to hear about the Pike County Massacre, you let me know, because I got lots to say.
Well, I would hope that they spoke to the families too.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much that weighs on what they actually do for prosecuting, but
I mean, there's a lot.
Families may have been like, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, well, there's a lot that goes into a death penalty case. It's not your normal death trial. You have to have death penalty qualified lawyers. You have to have a death panel jury, which means extra jury selection. It's not one trial, it's 2, right? You find out whether they're guilty, not guilty, and then a sentencing, life or death. They're very long trials usually. And it's, again, it's not because their lives don't matter. That's for damn sure. But he's on death row. He ain't going nowhere. Okay. At all. So I do understand why they chose not to go with that for those 2. But again, life without parole for both of them. So, even if his death penalty gets overturned, he has so many life without paroles.
He ain't going nowhere.
He's not going anywhere. Exactly. So
he ain't going nowhere.
Yeah.
Now, only one mystery remained. The woman who started it all in 2006. She was a ghost in the system. A collection of burned remains discovered on March 10th of 2007 that seemed to defy identification.
When those remains were found in Salt Rock Township, there were no clothes, no jewelry, and no IDs. Sheriff Bailey would later reflect that the effort to give this woman her name back was a worldwide endeavor. Investigators didn't just look in Ohio. They reached out to the FBI, the Secret Service, and the U.S. Marshals. They tracked leads in Canada, Mexico, Israel, and Eastern Europe. And for years, the database sat silent. The DNA was there, but it was a key without a lock at the time.
And in 2018, while Grate was facing trial for the Ashland murders, science finally caught up to his first crime. Investigators utilized a technique called oxygen isotope analysis. A person's bones are a map of their life. By analyzing the isotopes in the skeletal remains, scientists at the University of South Florida were able to tell a story of what this woman had eaten and what water she drank. This chemical signature cast doubt on the theory that she was a foreign national.
Now, the bones whispered a different truth. She was likely from the southern United States, Florida, Texas, or perhaps Louisiana. And for the first time in 12 years, investigators had a starting point. Armed with this new geographical profile, investigators narrowed a list of thousands down to just 15 photographs. These were 15 women from the South who had vanished around 2005 or 2006 and fit the physical description of the remains.
The plan was to present these 15 faces to Shawn Grate. By this time, Grate had already hinted at a victim from his past, the magazine lady, but he couldn't remember her name. His attorneys, however, weren't ready for a reunion. They blocked the meeting, insisted that Grate wait until the Ashland trial was over before looking at the faces of the missing.
Fair.
They wanted
we don't like it, but that's fair.
They wanted to protect their client from a third capital case, but the wheels of genetic genealogy were already turning faster than the legal system.
Now, in 2019, the Marion County Sheriff's Office partnered with the DNA Doe Project, a nonprofit that treats unidentified remains like a family tree waiting to be reconstructed. By finding a single distant relative in a public database, they were able to work backward through generations until they landed on a name that had been missing for 13 years, Dana Nicole Lowry. Dana was a 20-year-old mother of two from Minden, Louisiana. Born in 1983, her life had been marked by early tragedy with the loss of both her parents. But she was remembered by those who knew her as a hard worker, someone who was always trying to do the right thing for her girls.
In 2006, Dana was traveling through Ohio, selling magazines door to door to support her daughters back home. She called 3 or 4 times a week to hear their voices. And then in May of 2006, the phone stopped ringing.
Her boyfriend, David Cobb, was left in a position many families of victims face. Without any evidence of foul play, he assumed Dana had simply moved on to a new life. An aunt filed a missing person report, but in a pre-digital age of transient door-to-door sales crews, the trial went cold almost immediately. Let alone the distance between Ohio and Louisiana. It's not like this family even knew where to begin looking in Ohio.
It's weird to me that we were selling magazines door to door in 2006, though.
But what is it?
I don't know. In 2006,
the internet was around, but like people were still buying magazines at that time.
I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying it just doesn't. It seems like we wouldn't have been. I don't know, but
I don't know.
For 13 years, Dana's daughters grew up without knowing if their mother had left them or if something terrible had happened. While they were growing up, their mother's remains were sitting in a Marion County evidence locker, labeled only as Jane Doe, found off Victory Road.
When Dana vanished in 2006, her daughters were just 1 and 5 years old. They were babies who grew into young women without any memory of their mother's face or the sound of her voice. It is a cruel irony that the very thing they inherited from her, their DNA, was the only thing that could finally bring her home.
Ugh.
I know, it's heartbreaking.
Samantha Molnar from the Bureau.
Samantha, that's just me, my typos.
I mean, it could be a name.
There.
Samantha Molnar from the Bureau of Criminal Investigation said, I can't even put into words. It's sad. It's exciting because at least the family knows, but the result is awful. She was so young and her daughters grew up never knowing their mother. I think that breaks my heart more than anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, in May 2019, Sheriff Bailey of the Marion County traveled to meet the family. He wasn't there, though, to deliver good news. He was there to ask a daughter for a cheek swab to confirm that the burned remains found off Victory Road 12 years earlier were, in fact, her mother.
It wasn't just her children who were looking for all these years. Dana's former stepfather, Ed Phillips, had spent years scouring the internet, hoping to see a reconnected notification or a social media profile that would prove she was still out there. He remembered her as a pretty girl with a bright future, a future Grate extinguished over a $4 magazine commission.
Ridiculous. Now, Ed Phillips said in an interview, quote, throw the book at him. Do everything you can. Just tell the prosecutor, do not let him see the light of day ever again. And in September 2019, the cycle of justice for Shawn Grate reached its conclusion. In a Marion County courtroom, he pled guilty to aggravated murder, kidnapping, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse. He was sentenced again to life without the possibility of parole, plus 16 years. Added to his death sentences in Ashland and his life sentences in Richland County, Shawn Grate became one of the most heavily sentenced individuals in Ohio history. And I think it's important to know that all those happened in different counties.
Mm-hmm.
So to try to undo all of it, it's very messy. So he's not going anywhere, guys. Trust me on that. It's not happening.
Mm-mm.
So
Thank God for that.
Mm-hmm.
The final chapter of this story belongs to the woman who sat across from Shawn Grate for hours, navigating his delusions and pulling the truth from his other me. Detective Kim Major's role didn't end with the handcuffs clicked shut. It evolved into a legacy of advocacy. Sorry.
There you go.
And the pursuit of the right story.
Now, for years, Kim Major was a silent guardian of the case. Despite being a determined detective who broke Grate, she declined over 30 invitations to speak on podcasts and news programs, though we are more than happy to talk to you, Detective Kim Major.
I'm a big fan.
Big fans. Amy is very much a big fan. So, I mean, I am too, but still. But she wasn't interested in the spotlight or the true crime spectacle.
That changed when a victim's family member approached her with a heartbreaking plea. They told her that their loved one was being portrayed negatively in the media, labeled as trash or disposable. They asked Major to do something about it. They asked her to tell the truth.
Right. Now, Stringer, your comment earlier about how you appreciate we tell their stories. Exactly. Because you never know if their family's watching, but they probably are. And even though the victims aren't with us anymore, they deserve decency and humanity all the time. And a lot of people don't really care too much about that. But it happens all of the time where they get things wrong about the victims, or, oh, we're not going to talk about them because their lifestyles, because they're not the perfect victim. Now, Major partnered with acclaimed author Lisa Pulitzer to write A Hunger to Kill. The book serves as the definitive account of the interrogation, detailing exactly how she utilized psychological strategy to dismantle Grate's defenses. More importantly, it serves as a platform to restore the dignity of the women he killed. It was no longer about the lady killer. It was about the victims, the small town that survived him, and the quest for a confession that changed everything. And you read that book, yes, Amy?
Yes.
Yeah. What do you rate it? What do you rate the book? 4 stars, 5 stars? How'd you like it?
I mean, I started reading it again.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a reread. Wow. Okay.
I mean, I don't know why, because it's the topic is not so great.
Right. I know what you mean. Yeah.
But I think
But well written.
It's well written. Yes.
Good.
Not well spoken, because I can't speak, apparently, because I was going to say well written, but it's good.
A Hunger to Kill is the name of the book by Kim Major.
Major's commitment to Ashland County didn't stop with her retirement from the police department on May 31st of 2022. The very next day, she stepped into a new role as an investigator for the Ashland County Prosecutor's Office. She traded her badge for a desk where she could continue to bridge the gap between law enforcement and the legal system, ensuring their future cases were built with the same meticulous care she gave to the Grate investigation.
Now, today, she continues to serve her community as the Safety Services Director at Ashland University, keeping a watchful eye on the next generation. But perhaps her most lasting contribution is the Major Impact Fund, established through the Ashland County Community Foundation. Recognizing the deep psychological scars left behind by violent crime, Major created this fund specifically to help victims navigate mental health issues, which I just think is such a great thing to do.
It is the ultimate rebuttal to Shawn Grate's hunger. While he sought to consume lives and leave only trauma behind, Major has ensured that the community had the resources to heal. Today, Shawn Grate sits on death row. His execution was originally scheduled for March 2025, but it remains in legal limbo as Ohio continues to grapple with the logistics of lethal injection. His appeals are exhausted, thank God. The lady killer is now just another number in the system, waiting in a 10-by-10 cell for his death to come.
Now, the story of Shawn Grate is a dark one, but the ending belongs to the victims and the survivors. Dana, Stacy, Liz, Rebecca, Candace, and the survivor who started it all, Jane Doe. Their names are the ones that matter. It belongs to the family members in the purple #Stanley Strong shirts, to the daughters who finally know their mother's name, and to the detective who refused to let a monster write the final draft of history. In Ashland, Ohio, the Yellow House is gone, but the strength of the people who tore it down remains. And with that, that's the conclusion of the story of the call that brought down Shawn Grate. Oh.
And for my closing thoughts, Stringer Bell has pretty much written it for me. Remember the victims, not the fuckface.
Yeah. Agreed.
I know this is supposed to have some great closing thing to say here, but I think the story that you wrote here has really shared this very well. From what I know about the case, it is written well. I would strongly recommend reading A Hunger to Kill. And, I don't know what else to say. I'm at a loss for words. I'm kind of feeling a little emotional, to be honest. So
I think hearing the impact of the ripple effect. We hear it in every story we tell about how far it goes, that, these things affect everyone all over all of the time. I also want to say a special thank you to Pam in Disguise, who was our researcher for this series. I can't even tell you how many pages of research she gave me. Good research, too. So thank you, Pam, for all the hard work you put into researching this for us. Going from a multi-part series of Robert Hansen to this, it really does show you the difference of how things can be handled. And listen, I know Robert Hansen was the 70s and 80s. Alaska hasn't changed shit. We know that from recent cases there. Okay, it's the same thing. Am I saying that what Ohio did was perfect? No. But listen, I know many of you aren't from Ohio. I am. And the counties where these took place, they're still rural counties. They have one big city, if you want to call it that. Everything around it is farmland. You just drove through Ohio. You can verify that's what it is.
I was going to say something like it. It was really kind of eye-opening driving through Ohio this last week at just how vast the farmland is.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's very rural.
People say it, people talk about it, but I actually seen it.
Yeah.
And it's, it just wowed me. It did.
Well, these counties are very small counties. They don't have a lot of budget. They don't. That's just the reality of it all. And I know that when we did talk about Stacy, her family, expressed some grievances that we covered with the police. But comparatively to other police departments, they actually took a lot of this way more seriously than I was honestly expecting them to, because they don't have a lot of the same resources. These are very rural counties. You have like one big town of like, I don't know, 20 to 50,000 people. Everything else around it is rural, so having the budget to do a lot of what they did. I mean, even for, Dana and them, they went around, and Candace, but that's more than a lot of other places have done for people of lifestyles. So I certainly was
really have to give
that.
kudos to Ashlyn. I felt like from what I read that they did as good a job as they could have. I mean, it was, you can always do better, right? You can always improve. But with Stacy, I mean, she had been missing, and I'm not trying to diminish how many days she was missing. I mean, one day is devastating to a family.
Oh, absolutely. But, it's like a month.
But it was a few days before everything. I mean, I feel like there was momentum happening. It just wasn't going as fast as you want it to be when it's your loved one missing.
Which is more than understandable.
Correct.
With their grievances, of course. But, I'm pleased with what they did in this case, because they didn't know when they answered Jane Doe's call. They didn't know they were uncovering a fucking serial killer in this small ass town in Ohio. They had no idea what they were walking into. I mean, they kind of knew that something was going on between Liz being missing, because she called the police all of the time. But to think of what they ended up uncovering, they had no idea. So
Detective Major, though, man, she had his number. I think after her interview with Jane Doe, she was on a mission.
Yeah. Now, we didn't include what Jane Doe's doing with her life. I don't know what she's doing, but I don't really care, because
I think she's living all the life she wants to.
Exactly.
Underneath the radar.
Exactly. And so I didn't really go digging for stuff on her.
Mhm.
I mean, I do care what she's doing. I hope she's happy. I hope she's peaceful. Um, the trial is available on YouTube if you wanna watch it all. We pretty much, like, went over all this stuff, but sometimes you like to hear with your own ears. She is named in the trial. We still
She
chose
does
not to name her
you can hear her
anyway.
voice.
If you wanna hear Jane Doe's testimony, you can find it. It's on YouTube.com. But respectfully, I still wanted to continue referring to her as Jane
Absolutely.
Doe, because she didn't she
Mhm.
didn't, 1, ask for any of this, and she was listed as Jane Doe for so long, and she's a very private person, it seems.
Yes.
So, but yeah, the trial is available on YouTube. Long Crime, I think, covered
Yep,
it.
long crime.
How many days is it? 8 days? 9 days?
I think there's like 10 days because of all of the other the closing statements and
Right.
sentencing and all that. Total is like 10 days.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which is not too bad for a death penalty case.
Mhm.
But no, I'm really glad we covered this story. Again, here we have another group of very vulnerable victims being preyed
Mhm.
on. And I think if there's anything we learn episode by episode is that, yeah, these people that are on the margins or they're vulnerable or they're naive, yeah, they can run away or they can overdose or whatever. But how many times do we have to keep hearing the same story before we even consider that a reality? That somebody is after them. I mean, it's so textbook and cliche that as Lady and Grace said, I'm tired of hearing about their lifestyles, you know?
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's very rare for you to get murdered by a stranger statistically. Yes. But we know predators target these people all of the time for everything, not even just
Mhm.
murder, assault, all sorts of things, and people are down on their luck, and I get it, but I'm just I'm just over it. And some people might be like, "Oh, well, that's job security." I'd rather not be doing this. You know? I'd rather not be telling these really sad stories, but there's so much to learn from these stories, and there's so many new outlooks, you
Mhm.
know, that I think we provide on these people on the margins of society. By giving their humanity back to them, the rest of society is kind of forced to see their humanity too. And that's what we tried to do here, you
Well,
know?
I think that it's what if you can say enjoy, because
Mhm,
it's the topic, but um, it's what I like about what we do on True Crime and Wine Time
mhm,
is that we tell the personal side of it, like Stringer had mentioned earlier too,
mhm,
that y- y- I've listened to so many podcasts and I've watched so many documentaries about true crime stuff, but I literally the details about these people's lives did not know any of this.
mm,
And and not like I want to put their lives out there, but it's such an important piece of the story,
yeah,
you know? I just
agreed.
I feel like they deserve to have their stories told as much as you can without not knowing knowing them personally, you
Yeah.
know? But
Instead
anyway,
of some generic like, "Oh, they line up a room," or whatever. I mean, and people do, and that's
yeah.
fine, but sometimes it's like, "Okay, well, like, what were they into?" "Why did so many people care?"
Mhm.
Things like that. So, I mean, I'm really glad we're done talking about this guy. This guy
Yes.
sucks. I don't care to hear anything about him ever again. I don't care to read anything about him. He is not that special. He is a petty biatch.
My
And I'm
only
happy where he is.
my only want I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if he has any more victims. I really find it hard to believe that there
Mhm.
aren't.
But then why wouldn't he admit to them? Because he
but
admitted
that's the
once.
part that I'm thinking,
Yeah.
like, I mean, he's not gone. He could be saying things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He seems to like to talk. He knows he's not going anywhere.
True.
Why wouldn't he want the attention that it would get? On that note, I wanted to remember I said to remind me about notes. I saw a news article while looking into all of this and all of the Shawn Grate stuff. He's writing letters to a news reporter.
Ew.
And she brought them to law enforcement. I don't know what's coming of that. It was like a year ago I saw that that clip was dated, but I almost want to reach out to her and go, okay, I want to know, what is he saying?
Give us the tea. Give us.
I don't want to give him that pleasure of knowing that I want to know, but I want to know what the fuck he's saying.
Yeah. If we can even believe it, but you know, that is my one thing. Is there more victims? I mean, I think this guy gets set off by fucking nothing. But at the same time, he also confessed to people they weren't even looking into. They didn't even know it was missing. You know, there was no reason to just offer up those other women. Thank God he did. You know, obviously.
Yeah, we didn't know about Candace.
She wasn't even reported missing.
I mean, we knew about Dana, but nobody knew why or who or, you know, was responsible.
Yeah. And then Rebecca, you know, that overturned her death from overdose to fucking murder, you know? So, I mean, maybe he does still have secrets, but as Betty said, attention seeker. And I think that's exactly what he is, because he feels like he wants to feel more important than he really is. You know, there are some people that I want to hear from after the fact, you know? Like, I'm curious. I want to know more. This guy, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't ever hear anything about him. I don't care about him. He is lame. He is petty. He is disgusting.
As long as he never gets out of the 10 by 10 cell he's in, I could give a shit less what happens to him.
Exactly. And I hope they do something with that property in Ashland, you know, to do some sort of like memorial or something, but it's private property, so what are you gonna do? It is sick and sad. Juicy Jewels. I like that name. That's fun.
I mean, I think that from what I could tell, Ashland probably isn't a community that's really growing a whole lot. So there's really not a whole lot of money there.
That's
so
true.
Doing something with land might not be.
It's a fair point. Yeah.
I don't know. And there's always something to be said about where people have died, and especially in such a tragic way that they might not want to do anything with that place.
That's true. That's true. Well, with that, let's wrap up for tonight. Thank you all again for being on this journey with us. Thank you again to Pam for all of the amazing research you helped do in helping put all of this together for us, because it was 170 pages I had to go through and sort things. 170 amazing note pages with everything. So thank you again, Pam, for all of your help researching that. So.
Well, I agree with that. Thank you, Pam. You did an amazing job.
And Amy for being a fantastic first-time guest co-host. How you feeling?
You get what you get.
You get what you get, but like, she's feeling it though, you guys. She's feeling it.
But before we go, if you like what's that?
I said, I think we might see you again.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Okay.
All right.
Before we go, if you like what you've heard tonight, be sure to follow on all of our socials and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's free. Or if you're listening to our pod, please download and give us a rating. All that helps us tremendously in getting our channel out there.
It does. Now, next week on True Crime and Wine Time, the lovely Terry True Crime will be back with us, and we're going to get into a new story, the parachute mystery. What happened to Stephen Hilder? Was it murder? Was it an accident? Was it suicide? Was it sabotage? We're going to start uncovering that and see what you all think. So, is there anything else you would like to say, Ames, before we go or sign off?
No.
No.
Just thank you for being here. Take care of yourselves, check on your people, and keep an eye out for anything amiss.
That's perfect. See, look at you. You're a professional now. Look at you. Well, thank you all for being with us. Until next week, go forth and be amazing. All right. Bye, friends.
Bye.